They are under the state. The powers granted to those come from state statute. It's the state that decided what they can and can't do. It's appropriate for the state to decide, continue to decide what they can and can't do, and provide incentives for them to do the best thing for the taxpayer.
Yes, we need to consider this, but we need to give the subdivisions, the political subdivisions, a say in the matter. They need to have a voice in the decision. We can't impose our values on them when in fact perhaps they can do a better job. Maybe if they realize that this is something that we're considering, they will rework the way that they're managing that particular program and do it in a way that could be better than private industry, perhaps. We need to consult with them first. We need to have working relationships where they know that they can trust their state government, and we can trust them to do that which is best for the taxpayers of Mesa and Arizona.
Thanks. We'll now move on to our government funding and taxation section, and I think we're back to Ms. Allmans.
A temporary 1% sales tax has been used recently to fund education in Arizona. That tax will expire in 2013, and federal stimulus funding will expire in 2014. Arizona is projected to have a $600 million budget deficit in 2014. What specifically should Arizona do to prepare for the loss of these significant revenue sources?
Well, we're starting with Mr. Lewis.
I just had this conversation with Superintendent Cowan just the other day. What are we going to do when this 1-cent sales tax runs out? Thank goodness we had it during this most recent recession. The best thing we can do is grow our way out of this problem. If we can eliminate the poor image that vexes our city and our state and attract more businesses and get the economic engine rolling again, we can grow our way out of this. We can generate the revenues we need to fund the great programs that Mesa Public Schools and all the charter schools in our city have grown accustomed to. But we've got to work with those leaders to figure out what are we going to do. There are options, and we can work together collaboratively with the education leaders and other civic leaders to find solutions now before they're upon us.
Senator Pearce?
You know, there was a promise made that came with that 18% tax increase. That promise was it would be 3 years. I expect everybody to keep that promise. The nice thing is we have a constitutionally balanced budget. We're in the black, and we're moving further into the black. I just talked to the joint legislative budget folks over there that do the projections and the valuations of dollars and program, and it appears that we can meet all the challenges we need to meet without continuing to burden the taxpayers with a huge tax increase and not keep our promise. We're in a good position to move forward and meet both the challenge of the 18% 1-cent tax going away and the stimulus issues that came with the federal government with the strings attached. One of the issues with those strings attached was there's a lot of programs we couldn't modify because there was a maintenance of effort. Those strings will also go away when that money goes away, and we have the ability to do some reforms, eliminate fraud, and streamline some of those programs.
Thanks. Do we have any follow-up?
Yes, Senator Pearce, can you expound on some of those reforms? What would you do once the strings are not attached?
Well, again, when you talk about those reforms, and again, you can't tell me in a government the size that we have. Again, we've cut, like I said earlier, we cut government. Our employees are 15% fewer today than they were a couple of years ago. 15%. I can suspect you cannot give me any area that you've suffered as a result of less government. You know, there are reforms about fraud. We just went through a study that was showing that the amount of fraud in your access to welfare programs of people who are using other people's identity, getting 2 or 3 checks, or again, thousands of people funded that aren't even with us anymore. There's a lot of things we can do to again create efficiencies and to save those dollars that ought not to be spent without a real program cut, just stopping fraud, abuse to the taxpayer by again recognizing our fiduciary responsibility.
Mr. Lewis?
We need to help the taxpayers, especially in our city, know that when this additional 1-cent sales tax retires, and yes, we need to keep our promise on that unless we've grown ourselves out of this problem that we're in right now, the services that we receive now in Mesa Public Schools may not look the same as they currently are. We need to start now bringing parents' organizations together to understand what are we going to do, which priorities do we want to focus on when the sales tax goes away if we haven't generated more revenues to cover it. We need to talk with them now about alternative ways to fund it. Right now, my daughter, she's a cross-country runner at Westwood High School. All my kids have gone to Mesa Public Schools. She paid $100 to be able to run cross-country. I run marathons. I pay not nearly that to run in a marathon. But she wanted to do it, and we were happy to pay that. We have to look at alternatives. We have to bring everybody to the table to discuss what's it going to look like if we don't have ways to grow ourselves out of this economic fiasco that we're in now.
Just an extra one. Mr. Lewis, you had mentioned earlier that you wanted to grow our way out of this. How specifically would you do that?
Well, first off, we need to change the image that we have in Mesa and in Arizona. We are seen as a very unfriendly business state. We are seen as something akin to maybe 1964 Alabama. People do not want to move their businesses here.
Folks, quiet please.
Business owners do not want to move their businesses here in the current environment. We're having a hard time getting our great message out about this great state that we are. We're being misportrayed. I got a call from Dale Cox, a great friend of mine, who's been in Beijing as a headmaster of school. He said, "I'm so glad you're running. All that we see in Beijing about Arizona is the negative aspects that are being perpetrated on the citizens of Arizona and those that are not citizens. That's all they see. No one wants to come there. They think I'm weird." We need to change that image.
Well, thank you, Dr. You know, our tourism was up 10% over last year in these tough times. So I guess we are affected. You know, 30 states are running model legislation after what Arizona has done. So I guess, again, we have quite an image across this country. The governor just got back from a couple of states and shared with me everywhere she went, she got standing ovations 2 or 3 times for what Arizona has done. We are in the front of the parade. We've changed the debate in Washington, D.C. in a good way. 30 states love what Arizona's done. More than that, but 30 think they can model us and get something done in that. I think it's a shame that we continue to think we're embarrassed for the state when we've done what we should be doing to protect our citizens, save the taxpayer, and obey and respect the rule of law. These are tough issues, but it's our job. You know, we shouldn't shirk from that job.
Mr. Marisola.
Senator Pearce, in just a few short years, Arizona has gone from having a significant budget surplus to having to make significant cuts in state funding. You already mentioned the $200 million for education. Now, other than a balanced budget, what are your budget priorities, and then how would you balance those priorities going forward?
Well, again, first budget priority, the first priority is economic growth and recovery, and that's how you create jobs. You can't grow yourself out of an economy by more taxing and more regulation. You've got to reduce it. And you do that by simply lowering that burden, grow jobs, put Arizona back to work. We know the solutions. We don't need to, you know, again, we just had Dr. Prescott, I think his name for a minute, at Arizona State University, a Nobel Prize winner for education, for economics rather. And we've had several visits with him on the very issue. Arizona's doing all the right things. We're headed the right direction. We're lowering regulation. We're lowering taxes. We're creating incentives. Phoenix, you know, Arizona will soon no longer be a flyover zone for those who are escaping California and the heavy burden of regulation and taxation there. You know, we will be a place to do business. Arizona is open for business. We are a great state, and we're going to be a greater state when we're done. We're doing everything right from jobs to safe neighborhoods. I don't know how much better it can get than that.
I think in the interest of time, let's move on to our economic...
I'd like to answer that.
I'm sorry, excuse me, I apologize, go ahead.
60 CEOs of Arizona's top businesses sent a letter to the Arizona legislature this past March, asking them to please stop regulating this idea of immigration without a real reform in mind. We need to grow our way out of this business. We do that by stop regulating all things that are not necessary. We need to listen to the business leaders. We need to hear what they're saying, because they're the ones with the front lawn that are going to create the jobs, that are going to take the risk to bring people here, to start the jobs, and to manufacture the goods that will stimulate the economy. We need to listen to business leaders, and we need to act on what they're saying when it's in our best interests.